What's up? What's up? What's up, everybody? Hello, hello, hello. Christian Baxter is dead. Long live King Seabass. Fun. Hey, Zach, what's up, man? So I just got back from the art conference. Citizenship is the chance to make a difference to the place where you belong. Charles Handy. Oh man. So yeah, this is my ARC journal that I picked up along with the ARC pin for my ARC swag. Yeah, Seabass picked up the check, right? Oh man. So let's see. I've taken some notes. I'll first off want to say thanks to everyone who's followed along on the blog. That was wild, a lot of fun, challenging, and hopefully good. So thank you. We got a awesome. Thank you, Knit a Latte. Kick his ass, Seabass. Who's the question? Whose ass? So here's really, I wanted to do some reflections and I wanted to sleep on it a little bit. Yesterday was a challenge reintegrating into life. I think that is underestimated, maybe by myself or maybe by everyone, who knows, but yeah, kind of coming back into the real, or to the normal rhythm with jet lag and other responsibilities was challenging. And if you ever get a chance to ask my wife about it, I'm sure she'll tell you how challenging it was. But survived and lived to tell the tale. I just released my last vlog that many of you in the Hiveminder got to see. It wasn't very long, like almost about 20 minutes, just kind of the trip home. But really the biggest takeaway that came from one of my food sessions, my terrible foodie sessions, was that my sense was that ARC was not the future. And it's strange because if you pay attention in this little corner of the internet, I think you're paying attention to things that we, strangely, in our possibly blue collar and proletariat sections of the world, are able to connect with something along the lines of the cutting edge, and from different fields that are deeply rigorous, related to consciousness, philosophy, theology, and the like, psychology. And that is very strange, where it used to be at one time where the elite had their thumb on the pulse of the future, and through the institutions and the old avenues of information that were walled off to the general populace. And that is not as much the case anymore because of, well, YouTube. And we're only really a decade into that phenomenon. So, or a decade and a half. But yeah, that's ARC. ARC doesn't feel like the future. ARC feels like, I've been going to conferences, and large scale conferences at arenas and these types of things. And there was nothing revolutionary about that per se. So day one, it was, formal. Everyone's kind of looking for direction. And in my little corner of that space, Paul gave just a whiff of direction with his estuary, and people responded. People were looking for another layer of connection, another layer that was not provided by the conference itself, to enter into relationship. I had the opportunity to connect with Rick Walker at over dinner, and he operates in the elite worlds, and you see from time to time these moments in the corner where that that wall breaks, and Rick is a great example of that. And there was the hermeneutics of suspicion and all of those things cast upon him, and it was really fascinating to watch. We were supposed to have a conversation last year, and we're not able to get there, but with Rick, I actually talked to him and about kind of coming into these spaces, in these elite spaces. And he told me, because he does professional networking in the White House and all sorts of places, yet there he was having dinner with the Corner on Wednesday night, hosted by Upcycle. And, it was really something. And so I'm going to check this. I think of McGill-Chris flattening. I think elites never had the pulse on anything. They convinced themselves of the irony of the tower, now silos. Well, they had more control. If pulse is not the right word, control. So, and access. And I think they believe that those channels and those operations are still the way, to really forecast and be in on what's going on. So, and those things have obviously failed. If I just keep the news on in the background at my investment firm, then I'll kind of have an idea about the thing. When normal people are working in factories, they can't keep up with that stuff. Yet now, when they're in factories and they have an ear pod in and they're, listening to, philosophy, and they're listening to political science, they're listening to talks about AI, they have way deeper insights. So I mean, that's, so, I'm somebody that shows up and, I'm just trying to observe, and I don't have, this is just a conjecture more because I wasn't really in conversation outside of a lot of the Corner. So it just was an observation. Let's see, another point. So Peterson, he opened with his kind of a classic Peterson speech. And I think there was a nostalgia side of me that enjoyed it. Paul and like Rafe Kelly, they had criticisms of it being kind of incoherent or not really helpful, I guess. And then, a lot of the sessions were about, there was a lot of raw, like, whether it's anti-woke or free speech, and there a general sense of raw, for the claps. And so, this is Peter Penrose had dinner with us and got to meet Rick too over dinner. And that's just a perfect example of what the digital can do. Peter, channel supporter of yours truly. We meet up for dinner that connects to Upcycle's dinner, that connected to PBK, connected to Rick being there, and all of a sudden the digital has eaten away the hierarchy. I mean, that's just like a perfect example. So in ways that it wouldn't have a decade ago even. So where was I going? Politics, and that's a whole side. Like, I'm not like in Bethel McGrew's wonderful language. She introduced me to this term, or at least it stuck in my mind. I heard Wokel use it in conversation with Paul, but I'm not a political animal, as they say. And so, but I know that there were lots of, that was a big part, a big corner of ARC was politics. And there's also like the economy, there was also tech, there was religion, definitely more like in the religion space. And I think the question that seemed that the critique, like even I had that, that interview with Malcolm Collins from Basecamp, which was intense. Even though not everything he said I may have agreed with, it was still obvious that people, how do you create invitation for people at the seat of the table? I think that was one seat at the table. It was like, oh no, the intellectual dark web's here. We're broad. We're thoughtful. You know, Eric Weinstein identified himself as a progressive, and then, you know, Dave Rubin's up here and he's gay, and so we, you know, we were doing the liberal thing, and so I think, you know, and I missed some of the other stuff, so I just don't know. I didn't even see all the talks, and some of y'all will see more of the talks than I actually saw. Like RJ said, he's been watching on the internet here, and but yeah, there was this sense that there was a these people, Malcolm pointed out, people that have like really intense influence, you know, like to Paul's point about online theologians having, or online pastors like Pints with Aquinas, and you know, who has more influence than the structural hierarchies of these institutions, and the structural hierarchies of status and institution at ARC. Do they actually have more influence than the people, you know, that have these large followings, these influencers? And then my mind goes to the question of like, who holds the keys, hold the power, the keys to the stage. So that was an interesting question for me. And then who's having influence in that? You know, Peugeot is having influence. There was a Coptic Orthodox bishop that spoke. You know, Barron represented the Catholics. I guess that it was in, but there was not, you know, another conversations that kept coming up from the religious side was that, you know, when are they going to kind of land the religious plane or something? But I mean, when I look at the booths, when Focus on the Family has a booth at your conference, I think you've landed the religious plane pretty explicitly in certain ways. So to me, it wasn't as much about that. And as a Christian myself, I just didn't feel like being there. I felt free to be me, you know, and I think that's powerful. You know, I saw people and that were Jews that were there. I saw, you know, I know there were atheists there, you know, James Lindsay. I don't think, you know, Sargon of Akkad, you know, the people making their own religion, like the Collins, you know, Malcolm Collins was there. Like, so it's very, there, you know, there's a, that in and of itself kind of states the level of plurality, that liberal sensibility, but it definitely didn't have like, you know, that, I mean, I don't know. And I'm not really one to have like a really nuanced view on that. But yeah, so this kind of goes into the next point where Paul really liked David Brooks' speech, which was a critique, I guess, on MAGA to some degree, and apparently got boos from the crowd. And there was two different points where the Lord of the Rings reference was made about Theoden remembering what it was like to pick up, like when Gandalf says, maybe if you grip your sword, you'll remember kind of who you are, after he's exorcised Wormwood's and Saruman's spirit out of him. And I've actually made a meme, something like that, and put it on Twitter several times with several different iterations. And it was meaningful to me to hear, because I think that I was on the younger side of people at ARC, on the older, younger side. And a video I made a year ago, so I'll share this. You can see it down here in the corner. It says, "It's the 6th video I made. Is there an ARC big enough to carry the West through the meaning crisis?" And I have a picture of ARC there. I've got this Redeemed Zoomer thing there. I've got this Lord of the Rings imagery there. I've got a picture from the Passion Conference from that year. So that is the question about, is it big enough to carry the West through? And I think that part of the people that don't know if they were brought into the ARC were Gen Z, and, you know, the deeper part of the right side of the politic. And that was, you know, exemplified in my conversation with Malcolm. And I'm not the one that has answers for that. And I don't know if I'm like think that that was wrong that they weren't platformed that way. But I just think I'm curious. But because I think that what Gen Z is looking for is what something within that deeper right side is offering them, which is something that could be, that's difficult to between the words confidence and pride. And the conversation that I had with Paul Vanderklay about lions and foxes that he's talked about in the past, and this relates to, I guess, the David Brooks thing. Paul kind of had critiques when he hears people like, whoa, pick up that sword. Oh, are we talking about Christian nationalism? I don't take it that way. I take it as like coming out of the seeker movement, like, oh, you know, I mean, we're relational, not religious. You know, we're you know, I believe in a relationship, not a religion. Like, you know, keep that stuff like it. And there's a self-consciousness and an embarrassment related to saying that you associate with something explicitly. And I think that is one of my biggest critiques, if I'm going to make one from that side of ARC, is landing the plane somewhere for the future, for young men and women to be able to identify, like, are you just identifying with ARC? Well, what is ARC? Well, it's a lot of things. And so what does it mean to be confident? Like, I think there was hesitancy from the little conversation I did understand about kind of British liberal social status and structure, that, yeah. So I think that is the question. And so RJ, yeah, he's feeding into this. Let's see. Gen Z needs a seat at the table for effing sake. In my opinion, millennial needs to mentor them the way they were not by Gen X. ARC could and should have been a place for that. So yeah, I met someone, Upcycle introduced me to a young man who was a Gen Z delegate from either Norway or the Netherlands. Like, they had a young delegates, but there wasn't like a highlight. The youngest person highlighted that I saw was the guy who wrote Richmond, North of Richmond. You know, I can't remember the name of the song, the critique on Washington. But that's something that I think we need to consider even in like this corner of the internet. My Gen Z roundtable was one of the more successful things I've done on this channel. I think meaningful. And like when they said that this was going to be more about like art, I think that would have been a great opportunity. That would have been like a soft like elevation of somebody that's doing something. Yeah, I mean, I think this is a great question. Yeah, Donnie. So you know, when I came on the TLC scene, I think, and people assume that I'm a lot younger than I am, for one, but two, oh man, look, it's the young bucks. And I was like, well, I'm not that young. Like, so how does that work? And, you know, people like Afriel is working hard. President Foxman has done things, and these are young guys that have put themselves out there. So, you know, my vote is in the future, like at the Midwest Estuary, is to give that some thought, some consideration. So yeah, that was Gen Z leadership. This question I had. Let's see. Yeah, disagree with Paul on fearing the metaphor of Theoden for confidence. There's been such a lack of confidence, and that it's always the fear of the liberal is that if you are confident in who you are, that means then you will be fascist or something like that, you know? So it's like so we can't, so as a result, we can't even like approach that kind of confidence. And you know, even that's people are looking for in these institutions with the traditional churches. And you know, even in my video a year ago, when I highlight Redeemed Zoomer, he is a Gen Z Zoomer that has inspired me. Sometimes I say too base for my taste, but he nonetheless has inspired me and even given me a lot to think about. And he's like, you know, not even 25. And so and he's done some really incredible work organizing young people and activating them into building something real and to feel inspired to do something. And so, I mean, I think he's somebody that is inspiring in that way, that exhibits a type of confidence that I think is, for the most part, good related to these things. So that's a question. So one of the most interesting parts for me was the conversations around AI. And if you followed my vlog, I put that picture of Peter Thiel hovering over Jordan Peterson, reminding me of this like 1984 scene when Steve Jobs or Bill Gates was looking down on Steve Jobs as this techno future and the questions of therein. And Peter Thiel spoke on the Hoover Institute several months ago, and he had all this religious language that he was bringing out, biblical prophecy, and I mean, in my conversations with Jacob from Chamomile TV, you know, he has dealt with the Peter Thiel scene, but then also JD Vance is kind of connected to Peter Thiel, and Peter Thiel invoked the Imago Dei, the image of God, as a necessitating reality for the human soul, as a differentiating factor between AI and humanity. And I have to say, like, that's encouraging. Like, you know, when I'm thinking about the future in these conversations, this is somebody that's, you know, now these guys are the elders, the Gen Xers, and confidently invoking my religious heritage, you know. But yeah, those are. So then the other part of the AI conversation is where most, I think, the young people that did attend ARC were most possibly fascinated by. I went to the AI dinner, Future of AI, and yeah, and so and so I think, yeah, this is where some of these questions, like Bishop Barron invoking the Summum Bonum and Peter Thiel, you know, they're, I think, probably both Gen X guys, elder Gen X guys, really invoking some confidence, you know, related to such things. And let's see here. So where was I going with the AI conversation? So I sat at a table, and it was mostly people like under 40. There were people that worked at Meta, people that worked at Google, young people trying to start their own. There was a guy who had a tech business. There was another guy who starting his own thing. The older guy that was at the table, who I interviewed, he was in the energy sector. So like, he was the oldest guy in his late 50s, and everyone else was under 40. And it also, every time the AI was brought into the conversation, there was genuine curiosity and then genuine tension within and genuine conversation within the discussions that weren't just panel talking points. And to me, that was the most fascinating thing. And then it also ended on the religious question. And I don't remember the name of the guy who spoke, but let's see some of my notes on the AI. So they talked about 3 separate memory systems: motor, memory, and procedural. Episodic, dreams and thinking and memory, images and subconscious. Someone said most fear is speculative for AI. The question of what's happening today. That was the Mike Solana guy, who apparently is a big influential person in Silicon Valley, pushed a lot of the Tech Bros MAGA. Peterson had this concern about AI replacing him. He said that he had it right, chapter 13 for 12 Rules for Life. So you can go check that back out. Will AI take away the pain of living? That was a question. And the necessity for the pain, that's part of what being human is. Mary Harrington was very from, I think The Spectator. No, she's from the Unheard. That AI is nothing more than a elliptical machine for the mind, like a tool for the mind, because it cannot ontologically replace humanity. So yeah, the AI conversation was fascinating, and I think it's where the younger people were at. Let's see here. So I mentioned this in my video that just came out today, my last video home, but for the experience that I had of going from Heathrow in London to where I was staying, then to the conference and back to the conference and where I was staying, like I didn't see any British culture. And I know that there are places within London that would exude that much more, and I didn't do any tourism. So, but just that I was there and there was like nothing for me to grab onto really was sad. And then I go back into the airport and I just feel like I'm in Nashville. Like I see a British flag and it's like so glaring. I'm like, oh, what's in there? Like, yeah. So, I brought some kids from, I wanted to take London things home for my kids, not ARC things. Like, and to me, that's goes back to that question of confidence. Like it's in London. I feel like there should have been something London about the conference. So when I went to Christ and Culture, it was not this bland idea about culture in Galway, Ireland. It was like infused with Irish culture. And I think it would have been okay and that was one of the liberal, like everything has to be bland, like to give it some British, if it's going to be in London because Peterson believes like that's the root, of Western civilization or something like that, then damn it, give it some British pride. Or, like I think that is, you had people speak that were British and obviously, and they showed some projects happening there, but it was like, there needed to be some kind of cultural ethos that like, why would I be offended if I'm going to London and there's like something British about the conference? And I think that's a question for younger people are kind of hungry for, because we have been existing in the urban monoculture longer for our whole lives. So, Kezi bringing it in. So let's see. And there's, what else have I got here? So for me, there was relationship deepening. Networking was powerful and deeply meaningful. The most important part for me was making those real connections to this corner, but also a part of pilgrimage related to the Peterson phenomenon and something like, yeah, just being seen and being known. Bumping into Symbolic World was important. And then, really feeling like, this corner of the internet related to Paul Vanderklay is the reason that this channel exists, like bar none. And that has deep meaning and that it has relationality. Like that. So being able then to support that felt so deeply meaningful. And I'll be coming out with just short little Estuary promotional from our, on the clips, the little bit of clips that I did in the interview I did with Paul. And I think that felt to me like one of the most, like one of the reasons I was at ARC. The other was this contrast, and talk about confidence. And this is interesting. I've been getting a lot out of AI experience on the Shoulder Surf channel. Shoulder Surf's been commenting a lot. I have not seen his channel, so I'll have to check that out. But this, my relationship with Jordan Hall, I connected with him right off. He messaged me right when the conference started, and we got to sit down and hang out. And then we were just around each other most of the time, because he was out existing in the commons in like the expo area, and you listen to his conversation with Ross Bird and this, what he is identified as the commons of what used to exist in the space where exchange happened, where the lords and the peasants, and I don't know if I'm getting this all right, but that is where the magic happens. And then there's this level of intentional conversation with Estuary that's like you have kind of the commons and like, let's break apart and do something serious together. And then, okay, now let's go attend and listen to this idea. And then let's come back into the commons and let's be in the commons. And maybe a few of us, hey, you and you and you, let's go have Estuary and float up here together. And that the corner was able to facilitate that through Jordan and through others that have been supporting the corner in the background, and then Paul. And I think there's a big lesson there for the conference as a whole, and even our conferences moving forward. So to that point, Midwest Estuary in August. So if I've learned one thing from Grimm, it's that I need to Estuary conference. Yeah, here it is. I'm going to show this. I'm going to do some promotion here. That's let's see. Remove stop sharing screen. Okay, there's the button. Share screen. Here's this. This is on Sam's channel. And yeah, let's do this one. Yeah, August 22nd through the 24th in Chicago. We got Paul Vanderklay, Elizabeth Oldfield, John Vervaeke, Cale Zeldin, Jonathan Peugeot, and Rod Dreer. And Estuary, right? So the challenge for conferencing is to actually be radical. And I think that Jordan was radical at ARC. He didn't go to ARC. He didn't go to anything they had to say. Pretty radical. That's how he conferenced. Paul, he created an underground conversation format there and used his network. He had Glenn Scrivener, Jordan, Rafe, Bethel, others take place, people that are doing things on the internet participate in Estuary. We even had a Gen Z, a young man who was attending, named Elliot. He was attending as a, like he was helping. If Gen Z did anything, they were the people with the ARC jackets on, like getting people to places they were supposed to be. And Elliot was skipped 2 days of his university classes to attend and do that so that he could be around people on the internet, specifically like the corner that he's followed on the internet. He's been following Paul, and I think he'd even seen a little bit of me, and that's why he wanted to help at ARC. So, yeah, that's the challenge coming up for it. Will Estuary conferences just turn into the ARC? And that was the question that was given, that was said directly to me by somebody organizing this Estuary. And the temptation is to, center it around the talking ideas. And what do you do with that? What do you do with those people and their value? And what do you do with the people attending? And this kind of shortening the distance and hierarchy and getting people to have things emerge from the gathering through the Estuary protocol. So that's a question. And how can Estuary as a movement support Gen Z? People like President Foxman, who's in ElseNet, starting an Estuary up in the Northwest, and Afriel, and younger folk. My friend Joseph Lambrecht, these guys in their 20s. Will CBACs be pilgrimaging to the Midwest Estuary? You betcha. Yeah, I'm in talks with helping do some music for the Midwest Estuary Conference. So I didn't make the promotional placard, but I am supposed to be helping do some some musical engagement related to the conference. So yeah, I'll be there. Let's see. Yeah, so what is the future? I think Estuary is the future. I think Jordan Hall's Commons are the future. I think that Symbolic World is the future. So I would pay attention. That's who I'm paying attention to. And when I went to Symbolic World last year, Vesper Stamper, who I had the privilege of meeting and having a really wonderful conversation with her husband about art and ministry, and his name's Ben Stamper. And when she was at Symbolic World and she gave the last talk, it was a charge to pick up your pen, to pick up your paper, to pick up your art and go out and build. And I was kind of like going to pick up my camera. And so a year later, this is what I have done from that time on this channel. This is what I've been building. And so when Peterson, this is kind of where I'll land the plane today, but when Peterson was talking in his last speech, which I looked upon him with great admiration and care, but I was not connected in the, like listening to him. I was not being inspired in that moment. And there were maybe some other reasons for that. But the last thing that he said before he walked off the stage at ARC was pick up your paddle and row, using the metaphor of the ARC. And so, do something. And it's a messy thing. What I do on here on the internet over the last year, Conversation Craft as a meme, yours truly as a meme, a podcast, a synthesizer, a live streamer, all these things. I'm just figuring it out as I go. I don't have a great, just completely narrowed, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing. I'm still figuring that out. And, but I am trying to take the things that I have been given and the curiosities and the tools that have been built in me for my life and use them in this way. And so I'm still trying to row, maybe rowing into Estuary. So Boss Van Oss, y'all have got some Estuary stuff going on over there with you and Paul right now. Attendees, yes, but as a conversation craft, it can easily move into other spaces. So I don't know exactly where he was pointing at with what I was saying, but yeah, this is a conversation. It's one way right now, but I'll open it up and we'll do 30 or 40 minutes here. So yeah, I think that's all I've got. So can confirm that Seabax is even better looking in person. Right back at you, Teo. So, all right, let's drop the link and we'll do a little bit of this. Come on in. The water's fine. We'll do a little branding here. Hi, this is Christian Baxter, and you're listening to Yours Truly, a place we go to think out loud. Nobody's hopped in yet. I've got the link in. If anyone wants to discuss things we've discussed, come on in. The water's fine. I'm gonna pin the link real quick in the old YouTubes. Oh, there's one. All right. Come on, RJ. I don't care if you're sick. It's the corner. We can play. Just have to have a phone and a camera and a microphone. Many people do. Let me see if my book's over here. Oh, my groans of age. This was a gift I got from Peter Penrose Bach called In a Certain Kingdom, Epic Heroes of the Russ, translated and retold by Nicholas Kotar. So he told me, so one of the things I'm wanting to do this year on the channel is dive into the enchantment side of my story. I feel like last year, a lot of it was religious. A lot of it was, yeah, I don't know, kind of the Peterson questions and that phenomenon. And one of the things I'm wanting to dive in more this year is to the enchanted part, which, let's see here. If I still have, yeah, I've got this pulled up. Oh, there it is. There she blows. All right. I'm going to share this screen. Sharing screen. There we go. And pop. Oh, okay. So this one over here, The Lost Art of Enchantment, that I posted a year ago, episode 11, How Rankin and Bass use video craft to haunt the minds of children for decades. So yeah, it's kind of a funky video essay that I did, kind of a stream of thought that doesn't mean a lot to a lot of people, but it was just something that happened to me. And it's related to all of the kind of media that was enchanting that I was taking as a child, not as much books, but I was affected by enchanted media. And Rankin and Bass, who did The Hobbit, Frosty the Snowman, they did all of the stop motion animation for like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and all those things. And they did the Thundercats. They had a big impact on my psyche. And then also the Sierra Online quests, adventure games, they were a big part of enchantment into my mind. And so I received stories through those, that of the influence. And so King's Quest, this is In a Certain Kingdom, Epic Heroes of the Russ. Like, this is a story, which the story of this comes from Peter told me that he saw my conversation that I had with Andrew with the Bangs, and then he goes to her channel, and then he saw that she had interviewed Nicholas Kotar. And so like even this, getting this book to me, like is this this connection of this corner of the internet and how it works. And I'm kind of, this is like a beginning of that journey. And like Grail Country, that's why with the Grail Country, I'm kind of like just, I'm not even JV over there. I'm just kind of like on the stands, when it comes to all these things. But for my own journey, like I'm going to continue to try to understand that part of me better and take you guys along with me for that. So, and this is my bookmark I'm using is this saint that I got, which I think it's Christ, maybe Christ, from the Orthodox Church I visited. Uh-oh, here we go. They need to connect their mic. We got somebody coming up here. Come on in. You're going to have to get your mic fixed. Says we'll need to connect their mic before you can add them to the stream. There we go. Pete.
Yep. I'm a rookie, man. What can I tell you?
No, what's up, man?
No, man. I switched some stuff around on my computer, so I think StreamYard had forgotten me, man. Gosh, what the heck?
Technology.
Dude, I appreciated I appreciated a lot of your coverage there over at the Arc. And yeah, man, thanks for live streaming.
Yeah, it's part of the game. It's part of the play. It's part of the fun.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Well, and I had to step away for a second there, so I missed probably the last 20 minutes of what you were talking about. But man, I don't know. Just wanted to say hi. You're on. So
hi, and I'm on.
I was setting up to do some video myself,
What's your perspective on ARC, Pete?
Okay. Well, I will say that I think Paul, when you sat down with Paul to talk about Estuary and Paul's kind of little blips of like, how would you scale this thing? Okay, you break people into smaller groups, you sort of whisk them away into these little groups, and then you fold those little groups into bigger groups, and then you've got the main venue or whatever. What did they call that at ARC when it was
plenary session?
Yeah, right. So you have these big group settings, but in those big groups, you have your little initial group that you connected with upon entry, and then whoever else you've been sort of folded into along the way. And yeah, I mean, I tried to imagine what it would be like if I was Christian Baxter, as I'm watching your commentary and I'm sort of like living vicariously through you. I'm going, gosh, that would have been a challenge, right? To go alone, to just like, I'm going to show up here. There's thousands of people. I'm in a different country. And how do I even begin to make connections, to break through that natural barrier that exists when it's like, I don't know you, man. Like, I don't know you. Are we going to have a conversation? I guess we are if we're sort of not forced to, but if we are, if someone can sort of shepherd that, a mediator, so to speak, could connect these people, like Paul was saying, like you show up to Estuary and you sort of just like have a little small group already waiting for you. And then they sort of welcome you in. I don't know. That's how you sort of break that barrier, I guess, maybe.
Yeah, Pete says, when will we see the Pete and Seabax collaboration? Well,
dude,
we've done quite a bit of collaboration on the internet. My early forays into the corner, we did the Truly Strange show, and he was my first ever guest episode on the Yours Truly podcast. So, but it's real life. That should hopefully can happen soon. We did have dinner, but doing like the podcast in real life, that's up to Pete, really. So,
ooh, well, yeah, we did. Yeah, we did the Truly Strange 3 episodes. Did we get 3 episodes in?
It was closer to 5. I think McMo did one of them with me.
That's right. Yeah. So that's what happened is McMo came on and he assisted one of them, and then after that they never happened. So we blame McMo.
The Grimm said that when we did the South of Sunrise interview, that killed the show. He said that killed the show. So as far as the conference stuff, like the thing, it keeps, I did church camp stuff for a very long time. I was on staff full time for 5 summers. And this organization that I was connected to, they've been doing camps since the late 70s. So they've really operated with these formats, these liturgies, like they've contended seriously with them. And the thing that people like about this camp is it wasn't super platform, when all the platform stuff, like, I don't know if you've heard of camps like Student Life and big stuff, like these were big evangelical camps. Like this was a Southern Baptist one called Fuge Camps. And they didn't focus on the platform as much. They focused on the, and that changed a little bit over time, but it was like, they still had this DNA of caring about these Bible study leaders, which operated, you get assigned a Bible study at the very beginning of the week and you're with them for the whole week. Right. So you do Bible study with them, you do rec with them, and maybe a meal with them. But really, and then the other times you're with your youth group, like at the worship times and at other meals, and maybe at the night event, you're with your youth group friends or whatever. So but you kind of had this other group that forced you into Estuary. It forced you into mixing with other people. Like it forced you to do that. Yeah. And then you embodied like games with these people, and then you were in discussions with these people in the Bible study group. So I use the word Bible study, and I feel like it takes people's brains into another world. But just imagine, like when I say that, like I'm saying you do Estuary, and then you do some embodied play, and then you go back and then you do other stuff with your church group. And so it did extend your network, and like, oh, hey, come hang out with me and my friend from my church. And then, we're going to keep up after camp because I was with, these were my people. And then you also have an identity in these groups because every group had a flag and every group had a name. So you were the crazy this or that, shockwave, and you have a flag. And, so it's like there was something really magical about that format related to, so you come in, you do an opening session, and then just like Slack was saying, right after that opening session, you're sent off the first night to meet your Bible study group that you're going to be with the rest of the week. So I, it was really all I knew. I went to a couple other camp formats that were more like you come as your youth group, you do youth group stuff, and you go to the speaking events, and then you come back and do your youth group stuff. But there was no like cross
integration.
Yeah. And so I've seen that, be used in a really powerful way. And I think that's also what this Estuary thing is. It's just within the mixing of not just, church camp. We're talking about, 40-year-olds and 50-year-olds mixing, identities and ideologies and ideas and all sorts of stuff like around relationship and around conversation. And so, yeah, man, that's kind of some of the stuff that kind of comes to my brain.
Well, it seems like, I mean, I actually had that exact same thought when Paul was talking about how you sort of break people up into smaller groups at the Estuary conference level. And like, I was like, yeah, and we could come up with like camp names, like a group name, like I was always like SEAL Team 6 or something like that. We'd always have to come up with something like that. And you have a color, you get this like sort of tribal identity going. And what that does is, I mean, I think if we played with it more, it's like when you go up to camp, when you go to camp, there's an agreement. Everybody sort of agrees that it's like, okay, we're going to participate at some level, like, because I trust this camp. I don't know who's going to show up. And maybe Estuary is the same way. It's like, I trust the Estuary protocol. I trust these people who are guiding and leading Estuary.
Corner culture.
Yeah. And so when I show up, I've already agreed to be somewhat vulnerable. I've already given in a little bit because I'm saying, I trust you guys. I don't know who exactly is going to show up, but I've kind of already, and I think with church camp, it was always like, okay, I'm going to really like focus on Jesus, like I'm coming and everybody's going to like, we're all going to attend to this Jesus person, even though, probably throughout the rest of your school year, you're distracted by, sports or whatever it is that your other focus is.
Yeah.
We all come with this a mutual agreed upon set of sort of the rules of the game have been set. And so now it's like the question of, do I trust you, in a way goes out the window because I've already agreed to kind of come with a little bit of trust. I'm giving the people that show up here a little bit more the benefit of the doubt that I can trust you and I can be vulnerable with you. But I've also, the exchange then is that you are saying I belong, right? I'm giving you trust and vulnerability, and you're saying, welcome in. You belong here with us, and I can kind of, right? And so now those barriers, that at least for me, that would be like the two barriers that prevent me from really leaning into a group like ARC, where it's like, I don't know, like, do I know you? Do I know these people? Like you're the video that you took of Peter Thiel was just fascinating. It was so Big Brother. It was so Big Brother that I was just like, I don't know. I don't tend to like trust people like Peter Thiel, but I'm like, okay. It invoked that in me of like, I don't want to get duped in by ARC being what is essentially I don't know, like, is it another
World Economic
program? Is it another program within the Matrix to just continually keep you, sort of in the Matrix?
Yeah, people control.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It was I definitely felt the first day like it's like this. I mean, McMo put it like he put it aptly. First day of school shit.
Right.
Like that to me was
Right.
like, yes,
Yeah.
To that intense level of, lots of powerful people and whatnot, and so that was I felt that pressure a lot that first day, and I don't know,
Do I belong?
Yeah, do I? Yeah. Am I cool enough?
Yeah. Right.
And I was really grateful. That was when I bumped into Benjamin Boyce, who luckily, I mean, the reason, I mean, not luckily, but I had a conversation with this person, and that was the strange thing. It's like, oh, hey, yeah, I talked to you for 2 hours, and even and it was recent enough that, like, yeah, we can kind of figure this out together. And I think that that was, I mean, I did know people because of the digital thing. I did have some level of relationship. I'd never been in the same room with Paul until I met him in Europe. Like in the same physical room. Like, what is that? Yet, I mean, he has a decent idea of who I am, and I have a decent idea of, I mean, there are levels of it, but that you probably don't, with the camera on the internet, you don't just dive into necessarily, but like that is what the embodied relationship is for, with a meal and conversation or whatever. But I don't know, let's see. And this is the thing, I'm not talking about my childhood with the camps. I'm talking about my adulthood. I did go to youth group camps, but like I was like on staff at these camps, and I was doing the rock and roll music at these camps. Like I was not the that wasn't my childhood. It was and it wasn't.
Well, yeah, it
was. Yeah, let's see. Aaron, I wish I went. Yeah, man. I mean, it's interesting. It's like, I think I wanted to be at the last one. The last one was even more exclusive. This one,
the
last one, 1,500 people, and basically everybody I watched on YouTube was there. Like, it wasn't exactly that. I did see people that I watched on YouTube there, but
was the Ireland thing at all connected? What was the connection there with Ireland?
It was Estuary. It was part of Estuary. So Marcus, who runs the channel More Christ.
Okay.
It's got like 8,000 subs. You can check it out. He does a lot of interviews with corner people. He's had Martin Shaw, Peugeot, Paul, Jordan Hall. Like he's got all the guys and multiple conversations, I think, with maybe Vervaeke, and so like he put on a conference, and it had Paul Kingsnorth and Martin Shaw, Paul Van der Clay, and Father McDonough. So you had Orthodox, Protestants, and Catholics all participating as the platform for this conference. And so it was, I think it was planned around ARC, just like, so Paul is on the post side of ARC. He's doing more Estuary stuff, and it was kind of a pre-Estuary thing for ARC. So it was like, it was not connected to ARC, but it was connected to Estuary, and Paul was invited to ARC, and they all kind of feed in, tributary relationship to this thing. And Marcus was at ARC as well. He was one of the guys he was the guy interviewed with the Irish accent, if you saw him. But anyways, yeah, it was estuarial in nature. We did Estuary at the conference.
Yeah, it's just interesting. Like, as I was listening to your videos, I listened to them because I'm in the car or whatever. But it was almost like, man, I almost wish I had gone to Ireland, but I don't know that I felt that I needed to go to London. It's like,
well, the thing about the Galway conference was from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Yeah,
it was. It was a half a day conference. Like, and it's for the people there more than it was for. But outsiders.
It was Irish
culture and Christ, really.
Yeah.
But you brought Paul, and because Estuary is a part of the story, and and it's connected to the broader thing happening, because there's Estuary in Europe, like in the Netherlands and in Germany,
Right.
there's Estuary. I was going to say, like, Bishop Barron attached a conference to the end of ARC.
Okay.
He's doing it they're trying to become more institutional in, I guess, either Catholic or with his Word on Fire. They're trying to like really dive into planting influence in London and England. So there's also, there's also that kind of stuff. I got some questions here. What did I think of David Brooks' speech? I wasn't in there to watch it. I missed a lot of the plenary stuff. I'll go back and watch it on YouTube because Paul talked about it, and but that's the thing. Like, I only had my Paul's response to it in conversation. So Rick came to dinner. He came for more like 30, 45 minutes of dinner. But he came to like 10 minutes.
Hilarious. That was hilarious. He like shows up, and then you that was cool that you caught him, right? It's like the like 10 minutes that Rick Walker is at ARC, Christian Baxter goes, "Hey, Rick."
Yeah, I was up there like kind of alone, like talking into a camera,
It's great, man.
And that was one of those really fun things that kind of just happened. So yeah, but
it's funny too, because somebody was pointing this out, whether it's you, Paul, I don't remember, all the voices in my head, the speakers get up there, right, and they talk for 15 minutes, but they are people that you're used to listening to 3-hour-long interviews with on the internet. So like, to your point, it's like, do I need to go to these plenary sessions? I mean, I'm just going to watch the video like on my plane ride home, because if I go into that room, and how many people were in that main plenary room, do you think?
It seated everyone, which was around 4,000.
4,000. Okay. So you've got 4,000 people all just listening to one person, which, okay, well, we can do that in disembodied space. We can do that in the internet. You can get 4,000 people to just watch this person, this 15-minute video. But what we can't do is like what you and Paul are touching on, which is, or what Jordan Hall seems to have spent his time doing, which is actually like meeting in physical space with people, looking them in the eyes, having a conversation, with them. Whereas, and actually I posted something on Twitter about this, the idea of broadcasting a message rather than engaging in a dialogue. What they're doing in plenary is they're broadcasting you the message, but what you're doing in Estuary is you're dialoguing.
Yeah. I mean, the crowd was there for the applause, really, but like,
right.
I think the question, I thought that if they would have treated the platform like a podcast, like if they even would have set it up that way, that, even Pete, to our very first conversation, oh, how I wish I could have been in that room for that conversation. That was more how whenever the beginning of the Peterson phenomenon, there were these conversations that were hosted. What were they called? Somebody in the comments help me. What were those conversations that were moderated by Douglas Murray and Brett Weinstein? And they were these conversations, and people were watching conversations. That was what was, and what would emerge from these people that you had been listening to by themselves. And something, I think that if you would have turned the stage into a hosting conversation,
right,
it would have been wildly more interesting to see what emerged. And that was, it was kind of like when Peter Thiel and Jordan were kind of, but who are they talking to in that moment?
Right.
And that's would have been, and that, I think Peterson tried to ask a curious question, and then Peter Thiel kind of went off on his monologue, and it was funny. But like, if they would have put people at a table together, one 2, maybe 3 people and gave them an hour to try to get into ideas. Yes, Sherry, thank you. Pengburn conversations. That was would have gotten closer to the spirit of making something emerge out of this. And it would have been like, where did these conversational tiers?
Yeah.
And then the videos, it's almost like if you could, the plenary sessions in a way, like you would have capped them at 1,500 to get the people that were really interested in those. And then that way you can get your applause and your live feeling for that. But those are actually for the internet in a way. And the people that have never heard what, Jonathan Pichot had to say, like, and the thing, RJ, is that it's not that the reasons for attending are misaligned with the goals. We're talking about a change. The world has changed. Like I would, this is a way people have done conferences for years. Get smart people in a room that you haven't heard, and they've only written papers. You haven't been exposed to these ideas, and then you put them up and they talk about it for 45 minutes. You're like, mind blown, never heard that information before. Let's go talk about it. But it's kind of like, I mean, I've heard everybody's things, and so we're not contending with the fact that this has happened. ARC was not contending with this as consciously as I think it should have. It's just trying to use influence to do what influence has done in the past. But what else can Peterson say that's revolutionary from the stage? Like, I don't know. Really, the only interesting thing I think is going to come from curiosity that would come from a conversation. And I did see that happen in the breakout sessions for AI. So I think you make those your main sessions, and that's where magic's going to happen. So anyways, that's my thought on how, because it's not that the goals were misaligned, because it's that we're in a world that has changed, that we don't know what to do with exactly, on how, when you get people together, we're not just minds anymore. Like conferences aren't just for consumption. Because that was the main goal, is like, I've got to get the good information from the smart people, but it's like, well, not hard to get anymore on the internet. So what do you do then when you are together? And again, I don't think is it inherently elitist? No, I think this is how all conferences have been. I think this is, you go to a Christian conference, it's going to be the same thing. But it's like, haven't you read this person's book, and haven't you already watched them talk like their greatest ideas on the internet?
Yeah. I think Socrates was working this out a little bit, but I can't exactly remember if it was in the Republic or in the Apology, or maybe some version of it was in both. He was talking about how the philosopher cannot reach the crowd. The philosopher cannot reach the crowd the way the poet can, right? Okay, so the playwright, the battle is between Socrates and Aristophanes, right? Aristophanes is the one that puts Socrates on trial, basically, and Aristophanes is a poet. He's a playwright. He writes the dramas, right? And so he wants to draw the crowd, and yet Socrates, in a way, had more influence, although he never did draw the crowd, and he was known to be sort of an unattractive person, and so he wasn't really going to get a big audience. He was only ever going to have his small little group of philosophers. And yet what's interesting is that Plato writes Socrates into a play. So in a sense, he does both the philosophy that can only happen in the small group, that can only happen in that little group where you can facilitate dialogue, but then he creates Socrates almost as a character in a play so it can reach the crowd, the big audience, right? And so the Republic, if you read it almost like it's a drama, it has these different acts. I mean, there's 7 books or 9 books or whatever it is, it's this chiastic structure. And he writes Socrates as though Socrates is like another hero. He's basically another mythological hero. And so it seems like, and I don't know that I have the answer. All I have is weird, strange words, but like that's the tension we're grappling with something like Arc, is the appeal to the crowd, but also the dense, the potency of the dialogue. Because as soon as you have like Jordan Peterson on stage monologuing at you, you lose a little bit of that potency, because I can just listen to his podcast. But if I was sitting down and talking with Jordan Peterson, if we were engaged in dialogue, like Socrates is with his, interlocutors, then there's a what's the word? You begin to what is it? Basketball players do this, jazz musicians do this.
Improvise.
You're improvising, but it's like a free flowing anyway, it's a free flowing state of consciousness. Somebody maybe knows what I'm talking about.
Just the flow state?
Yeah, flow state. Yeah, it's a flow state. I'm thinking of all the other things. Yeah, you get into a flow state. You get into a flow state, and then what emerges, and I think Vervaeke talks about this a little bit. It's like something emerges out of that you would never be able to work that out just like on stage monologuing, because you're just sitting in a room beforehand typing up your speech, and maybe if it's a good speech, it does become conversational. It is conversant with whatever whatever ideas you're trying to address. But it's just right. I mean, it seems like there's more that emerges in and amongst a dialogue with just normies than maybe what you could get in a Jordan Peterson monologue, maybe to some degree.
Yeah. I mean, that was my question. And because I don't think there's anybody there that hasn't been affected by him specifically. I mean, that would be difficult to find, but the question being is, how do you do that? I mean, Paul's continuing with that. You're asking those questions, and I think that that's a great example of like, where does the influence? Was Socrates the influence, or was Plato the influence?
Right.
It was
would Socrates have had the influence that he had if Plato didn't write him into what is essentially a play? Because Socrates never wrote anything down. He would just stay in the dialogue. And so you need both. You need a Socrates who's going to say, no, I'm just going to engage in dialogue. I'm not going to write any of this down. And there's something to that too, of like, once you write it down, I sent this to Luke. But like, you disembody the speech, right? You disembody it. And so you lose a little bit of that. And yet, you're right. I mean, the relationship between Socrates and Plato allowed it to endure this long, allowed the philosophy of Socrates to endure this long, because it is sort of a combination of poetry and philosophy.
So that's what makes me think of, I mean, to take the metaphor to the actual, is the meaning that I felt recording the little bits of Paul doing Estuary. Like, Paul's just going to go do Estuary, but he's going to talk about some stuff on the internet, but like, no one's like looking at Paul doing Estuary. No one's capturing him in the drama of what he's doing. And, I think that is why I felt a lot of meaning in that. And it's like, well, it would have been great to be able to just kind of, because I'm on this kind of like personal quest, but like, I think that I think that like if I could have followed him throughout the rest of Europe and honed in on that story, like and captured that more, that would have been a lot of fun. And it would have been, I think, important to whatever is, continuing to go on here. Like, because I don't know, not in the way that the corner is not this highly marketable, highly thing. I think I get that. But there is also this element of how do you, if you believe in it, how do you show it to the people that are not gonna see it until they're shown it in it, and or something like, I don't know. But how do you like show conversation? Well, the podcast is showing conversation, Estuary, but it's there's also this just I don't know. It's like, well, you're just like video taping people talking, but lots of people have talked about the thing that you're like watching,
right. Right.
So there is like context. I don't know if this is Elliot that was at ARC, but I met an Elliot at ARC. It's like, this time the elites will get it right, man. Well, let's see. David Brooks' talk was interesting, guys. We are aimed at overshooting. Let's not. Response. Trader. I don't know. Okay, man, I'm going to have to like roll. Do you have any other things?
No, that's good, man. No, I was just about to say I got to roll too. One other comment, just that you are the dark and I'm the light. Apparently, I did not plan this. It was me, Elliot. Hey, Elliot, nice to meet you vicariously through Christian Baxter.
Elliot did Estuary in our. You can see him in the second Estuary meeting. He's the Asian guy on the left, young man. He's the Gen Z character.
Word.
Dude, Pete, coming on here, you really brought some good relationship to the Plato Socrates.
Well, man, as I was listening to your video that premiered earlier today, shout out to Christian Baxter, go watch his video, like and subscribe, hit the thumbs up button. Is that something Martin Shaw said, which is, what good is a meal if you are not there? And I was thinking about that. I was thinking about the picture that I think it was Bethel sent, or somebody sent, of all you guys sitting down at the table one of the nights of ARC. And it was like, if you sit down at a table with friends, you feast on 2 meals, you are feasting on 2 meals. And so thank you for sharing that meal with us.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Thank you for that cryptic
there you go.
Reality, man. And yeah, so everyone, the vlog, I'll put the vlog in the description here.
Yeah. I'll dip out and let you close out your stream.
All right, dude.
Thank you for inviting me on. Thank you. Thank you.
So yeah, dude. Yeah, check out the vlog I did if you're just hopping in here. And if anyone's out there and you are in the Netherlands and Germany and you're around Paul and the Estuary stuff, capture it. It's okay to be that guy, because somebody has to be. Capture it and share it in the ways that make sense. And with that, Elliot, glad you hopped on here out of the lurk. And yeah, to everyone who followed along, thanks again. So hopefully, thank you, my new channel member here too, Need a Latte. And thanks to everyone. This has been good. Thanks to Pete for coming on. That was helpful in the dialogue. Thanks for the Hive Mind helping me out with names. Sherry brought in Pangburn series, and it's just fun. This is just fun. So with that, we're going to shut it down. Everybody have a good day, and we'll see you next time. This is Christian Baxter, and you're listening to Yours Truly, a place we go to think out loud.